Hi everyone, welcome to Mindset Adventure. I'm here with Don Brandon, who helps personal trainers get their business online. And today we're going to talk about how to start your day effectively as an entrepreneur. Of course, we're going to talk about many other things, but that's the main topic for today. So welcome, Dom. Thank you for doing this. Tell me a bit about you. How did you get started? I know you've got an amazing wildlife story.
Thank you for having me. So I started online 2 years ago. I've had a couple of other careers before. I used to be a wildlife TV producer, which was an amazing job, and it meant I could travel a lot and see some amazing things and meet some incredible people. But the problem was I was very much restricted by the daily timetable and the timetable that dictates my life and dictated the way I essentially had to live. And I just want a bit more from life than that. And so about 2 years ago, I started online. I didn't really know where I was going, but I knew that I was going to get there, if that makes sense. And so I just got my head down and I spent the first year and a half learning, sucking in every piece of information I could find, finding mentors and learning, but never quite knowing where it was going to take me. And then I had my big aha moment. It was only about 2 months ago, it was fairly recently, that all the pieces clicked into place, and I was waiting for that one final piece and it just landed in my lap. Funnily enough, when the virus started shutting a lot of businesses down, that was what made me start thinking in a slightly different direction. And it all started clicking into place. So I now show personal trainers how to move their businesses online and build something that can change their life. I mean, online personal training has far more options for personal trainers. And it also means that I get the chance to coach and help and train people, which is what I love more than anything. So that's kind of a brief history of my professional life. And it's brought me to where I am today, which is, I feel lucky and I feel blessed. And I also feel like I'm in a place that I've maneuvered for myself. So I like to take a little bit of credit.
Yeah, I've known you for, I don't know, maybe half a year, maybe?
Yeah, about that.
And I've been watching your journey and it's amazing. It's amazing. And it really feels refreshing. And I see all your posts and everything and people really engaging with your posts because you are being authentic and you're putting something fresh and new out there. And it really works. So why personal trainers though? Just because you found that area interesting or it was an opportunity or there's something else?
Well, fitness and training and health has always been very close to. It's a big part of who I am. I say that quite ironically because for the last 6 months, I've let myself get the most unfit I've ever been. However, there's a part of me is slightly crazily quite likes that because it means I get the chance to kick myself back into shape, and that just it's a challenge that I'm quite looking forward to. So I think that's why the personal trainer thing, the final piece of my jigsaw, a lot of what I learned was in the digital marketing world. And I was surrounded by digital marketers who are great people and they've got some great ideas, and everything I've learned has come from that corner. But I don't consider myself a digital marketer. So I considered myself I would have been a bit of a fraud, I think, to have spent my life in that world. I wanted to learn from it, but I don't think it's where I wanted to be. And it was just a natural fit with personal training. Everything I've learned is a really great, it works so well because personal training is such a visual job, a visual vocation, that to build it online and to be on Facebook and to be in a community where people can watch your videos and engage with who you are is what makes it authentic. So going back to your first point, yeah, I mean, my posts, there's a lot of people out there trying to make a lot of noise and trying to get a lot of attention. And I think business just works better. I mean, likewise, I'll say the same about you. You show up all the time and people know who you are, and ultimately it's you that they're buying into. Wonderful as the group is that you're running, and wonderful as the content you put out there, it's you that they buy into. And I think that especially online, if you try to be something you're not, you will get found out fairly quickly. And the only way to really speak to people is to really speak to people.
Yeah, because I find that sometimes when you try to take bits and pieces from someone else and you think, oh, this piece of content is great and I'm going to post it out there, um, that would be just one single piece of the puzzle, but you need to fill the puzzle with everything else. So that's where authenticity comes in. And to get us back to the main topic, I think that when we struggle to find and piece together everything, we need something, we need a sort of structure in place that allows us to be more flexible. And I do think that a great start of the day is the best way to go, although I don't do it. So I don't do it all the time. I have my morning routines and everything, but I would really love to hear your point and your tips about this. What makes the start of the day the most important one, or is it the most important one?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is. You know, there's a saying I've heard bandied around. I still hear it bandied around. You know, nail the morning, nail the day. And I think it's. I can only speak obviously from my own point of view, and I know that when you have a head full of, there's a lot of things that need to be done, and you have a head full of ambition is not the right word, but when you want to get from A to B and from B to C, and that might be over a daily basis or a weekly basis or longer. If you don't get yourself moving and keep yourself moving, then you can very quickly become overwhelmed and stuck and not quite know where to restart, in which direction to get going. And I find that, especially for me, I think I'm naturally very disorganized. Well, I know I'm naturally very disorganized. So if I let that get on top of me, then it's very difficult to unentangle yourself sometimes. But I also think that once you recognize who you are and where your weaknesses and strengths lie, then it means you're in control of them. So my organization, I tend not to organize my days, but I will always organize my mornings. And I try to do it before I go to bed the night before, so I can wake up with a perfectly clear plan and structure as to how I'm going to spend my morning. And not every morning's the same. You know, there are days where I'll wake up and I will just think, you know what, I don't kind of hear it right now. I'm going to give myself a couple of hours off. I'm going to give myself a bit of a break. If it's not coming easy, then I tend not to try and force it. But that doesn't mean I don't know that when I do get going, I always know how I'm going to get going when I do. I always know how it's going to structure itself. So I try to create order at the beginning of my day and structure, and I try to listen to myself. And then I always know that once I get moving, that I'm very quickly in control, and that just then means that you get more work done, you get better work done, you become less overwhelmed, less pressured. It seems to stack things up very easily.
Can you give me an example of what that looks like? How do you said you start to plan the next day, the evening before. How does that process look like?
Yeah. So I'll have two lists. I always have two lists. I will have my list of what I'm doing today, and I will have that structured, which I'll write the day before. And then as the day goes along, I have my diary, obviously, which is a forward planning thing, but I also then just have a sheet of paper that starts empty. And on it, I will write what I need to do the next day. And it might be, some of these things will be, for example, if I'm chatting with you, that will already be on there. But there'll be other things that will come up as a consequence of what I'm doing now that I'll write on the list for tomorrow. Before I go to bed and before I finish work for the day, I will take that list and I'll order it and I'll structure it so that I know that the order I'm doing things. And I also know that there are times of day where I work in different ways. So if you ask me to come up with an idea in the morning, you might as well be asking me to speak Japanese. I couldn't do it, but I can do it. I'm much more creative in the evenings. So I know in the mornings, that's the time for me to bang out emails and to maybe write some content that's already pre-planned and to do the mindless, boring things that, you know, I'm only capable of doing at that time of day. And so again, it goes back to the idea of knowing how you work and knowing where you're at your best and recognizing your strengths and your weaknesses, and just strengths and weaknesses change throughout the day. So I'm kind of make sure that my day is structured the evening before. I make sure my next morning is structured according to my biorhythms. I guess that's the right word for it.
Yeah, I really find it interesting. It's the first time I'm hearing about this strategy. So you basically start your day, for instance, and you write down what you want to do the next day, let's say, or throughout the day. And then in the evening, you structure everything and you arrange it. So you don't just sit down in the evening and say, okay, so this day is done. What am I going to do tomorrow? Because that's also overwhelming and it's not accurate. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, thanks. It works for me. I mean, I am naturally, like I said, I am very disorganized. So I get mixed up and muddled up. I mean, my desk right here now, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, 7 or 8 pieces of paper with bits scribbled on them. At the end of the day, I'll make sure that's down to 1 or 2, and that then just creates order in my mind, which means I can sleep better. And it means I can also wake up and not have that panic. Oh my God, I know I've got so much to do. I don't know where to start,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like it because something that I also noticed about me is that if I don't know what I'm going to do the next day, the day just goes by me. Ooh, hello day, bye-bye, and so on.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really important.
But we're allowed to have days like that, right? We're allowed to have days. It's sometimes, I think I get the impression that you're similar to this as well, that it never quite stops. You're always thinking, you can't quite ever turn it off. You might be lying on a beach with a margarita in your hand. You're still thinking about work a little bit.
Yes, definitely.
And I think and so to give yourself a break, to allow yourself to say, do you know what? I know I've got a lot to do, but I am going to go and sit in the sun and drink a beer, because that's kind of the point. The whole point of it is to be able to do stuff like that.
Yeah, not only that, but you also get to organize them better when you take a break. At least that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, my best ideas come to me in the shower.
Okay. Are there any tasks that you do every morning to start your day right? Is there a recurring task, let's say, thing that you do?
So I have my morning smoothie every day, and I quite like the ritual of sitting there. I have I'm an addict of coconut water. So my coconut water, berry, banana, and spelt flakes smoothie, and then I always chuck something different in. I make it a little bit different, so I might chuck a bit of chili in there or some carrots or something. And that morning ritual of just getting the fruit and the veg out and chopping things up and creating the smoothie, and I put the radio on, and I have a morning just to zone out for 20 minutes where I'm just not trying to think of anything, not trying to achieve anything. I just have that. This is me waking up. This is me getting ready. And I then like I say, no morning is necessarily the same, but I see how I feel about when I start work. I try to delay turning the computer on as long as possible, simply because it's not always beneficial to be working. Well, it's obviously not always beneficial to be working every hour God sends. And so I listen to myself is what I do. So in answer to your question, yes, there are rituals in terms of me making myself my smoothie, which tends to get eaten and drunk by other people. But I will then.
It's so good.
I listen to myself. Yeah, exactly. It's the same, right? When you cook nice food, or you cook a nice dinner, or you make a nice smoothie, everybody wants some. But I listen to myself, and I will see how I feel. And sometimes I'll go for a run first thing in the morning. Sometimes I won't go for a run until later in the afternoon. Sometimes I won't go for a run. But I really do listen to how I feel. But when I've got a lot of work to do, simply by being really organized and starting it in a way that recognizes the way I feel, means that the work will get done much better and much faster. So that tends to be the way it works.
How long have you been doing this strategy with the morning?
Well, so I, when I was still looking for the business, when I was learning and trying to get the whole thing going, and I was in the digital marketing world, I didn't know what when I first met David, in fact, when I first met David, who is both yours and my mentor, um, we talked about, I didn't know what I had all this information and all this knowledge, but I didn't know the business that I was going to plug it all into. And I was looking for that. That was always the final piece for me that I didn't get. And it's now personal trainers, but I didn't know what it was at that time. And I was working with somebody who, was a very clever guy, Bastian, a German guy who, we talked a lot, and he was very into business structures and bringing the best out of people by being quite cerebral and very clever and coming academically at it academically. And I was at the time, like I say, I'm disorganized. So at the time was struggling with overwhelm, and overwhelm leads to procrastination and disorganization and things like this. So they fascinated me. So I started reading up a lot on those and studying those things. And it was from delving and immersing myself in those issues, which a lot of people confront. And I started thinking, okay, well, if I'm going to get over this, I need to work out how I'm going to get over it. And listing and structuring and creating schedules and breaking things down into really small chunks was the way I did it. So that initially was where I tried to build a business. It never really sat right with me. It was never really made my heart beat faster, which is what I've always been looking for. But it did teach me a lot of lessons about how to get the best out of myself. So about 2 months, about 4 or 5 months is the answer to your question.
It's funny how sometimes we need, I do this all the time. We feel the need to make this big introduction to a simple answer, like 2 months ago, but that wouldn't be satisfying, right?
Yeah. I guess I was trying to work it out, the answer myself, at the same time that I was saying it.
Yes, and that's super interesting. I really find it super interesting, and I like it. I like to see and being aware of the thought process that goes behind it. It's amazing.
Yeah. Why give a short answer if you can give a long one?
Exactly. All right. What tips do you have for someone who's trying to be more productive, let's say, and more organized? We know about your strategy. Is there a tip that would help them get started right away without them feeling like they're changing everything around them?
Yeah, no, I can tell you another story if you like.
Of course. Go ahead.
It was something I learned. It was something I learned that really rang true. I mean, I guess as people like stories anyway, but there was and this really taught me a lesson, and I learned a huge amount about how to stay organized, and just simply but there was in the 1920s, so 100 years ago, there was she was a Lithuanian psychologist called Bluma Zyganak, and she was in a Viennese cafe, and she realized what she noticed was that the waiters weren't writing down the orders, and they had tables, lots of tables with sort of 10, 15 people around it, and the waiters were amazing at remembering the orders that were being given, and then they were taking them relaying them to the kitchen, and then they were remembering who was having what, and who was still waiting, and who was having this for start, and they had these amazing memories for what they needed to remember. But the moment the table paid and left the restaurant, all that information disappeared, and they had no recollection anymore of who was there or who'd ordered anything. And she did a lot of research. Bluma Zyganak did a lot of research, and this is where overwhelm comes from, where that the brain finds it very difficult to let go of tasks that are incomplete. And so the waiters, what they were doing is these loops had been opened, and they hadn't been closed until the table had paid. But as soon as they were closed, the memory and the recollection disappeared. And it's the same with us. If we have tasks that are incomplete, if we have things that aren't finished, our brain can't let go. It's why we sometimes, 3 days down the line think, oh God, I didn't do this. Or you wake up in the middle of the night because the washing machine's on or something. And it's simply because our brain doesn't let go of things, that our subconscious keeps hold of things that aren't complete. So completing tasks, no matter how difficult or mundane or how much you might hate it, will free up space in your mind that will make everything you do far easier. Everything will become easier with every task you complete. It goes without saying, but it kind of needs to be said anyway, because we all put things off and we all start tasks and we all have open loops that just hang around and become a bit of a weight. And then we start procrastinating. So I try as best I can, and this is what I would tell anyone and what I do tell anyone. Just stick to something until it's finished and get the mundane tasks out the way. Eat that frog, as some people would say, right? Eat the frog. Get the ugly, horrible, disgusting tasks out the way as quick as you can, so they don't just sit there and hold you back. And they just clear space. They clear space for new ideas to come. They clear space for new energy to come, and just to get more out of your day, more out of your life.
This was so fascinating. I really loved your story, and
Thanks.
it makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. Yeah. Thank you so much, so much. I hope this has resonated with you all. Thank you so much for doing this. And if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Well, my Facebook group is, well, I'm on Facebook, obviously, Don Brandon, but my Facebook group is Online Personal Trainer Secrets. And the principles we teach, such as other principles that you teach, they're universal. They work in pretty much in any industry. So although I coach personal trainers, it will work for anyone. So you're all welcome.
Thank you. Do you have any parting words for everyone watching or listening?
As long as you keep your feet moving in front of each other, you'll always end up where you're going. 95% of people will quit, but you keep your feet moving and you'll always get where you're going.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Guys, have fun until next time, and we'll talk soon. Bye. Take care.